Slovakia. Or you can visit our website at www.globalslovakia.com to learn more about our work. Our main objective is to share Slovakia with the world. We've been actively doing this since 2018 via the production of unique literature, such as our books. We've co-authored, Gabriela and I, 4 of them. We have a 5th book on the way, which I will introduce after this brief lecture, which I think will definitely appeal to all of you and really speak to your hearts, because it speaks of Slovak settlers to the New World. So it's about the stories and the journeys of your grandparents and great-grandparents as they came over to start a new life in America. But before we talk about that, I'm handing it over to Gabriela, who will take you through some of the really enchanting and very ancient Advent and Christmas traditions that take place in Slovakia. Ever since I moved back to this country, Christmas is one of my favorite times to experience Slovak culture. It's truly a magical time. There's so many things we do in the home, and especially closer and closer to Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And many of these rites and rituals are truly magical, and they're really difficult to unlock and to explain why we do them. We kind of just do them because that's the way it's been done. It's been passed us by our parents, by our grandparents, and hopefully when we have children, we pass on those practices to them. But this presentation will unlock some of the reasons and some of the deeper meanings that are very, very touching as to why we do these rites and rituals at Christmas. So Dr. G, I hand it over to you. Please take us on a journey. Thank you.
Thank you. So warm hello and a good afternoon from me too. I will just jump right into the topic so that we make most of the time that we have together. So as Zana said, Advent in Slovakia, aside from, we also have the commercial chase of gifts and the stress and everything happening here as well. But there is still this original, authentic spirit of the season that is very much alive in our traditions that accompany the 4-week Advent period and sort of escalate as we get closer to Christmas. Advent to our ancestors was not about gifts. It was the time when we gathered together, when we shared stories, when we supported one another throughout that difficult season that winter was for them. I know it gets dark, it's cold, etc. Food was not always abundant, so the community really needed to stick together to make it through the season. And people needed one another, and that's reflected in the customs and traditions that we're going to present to you today. Also, on a more pragmatic level, our forefathers and foremothers lived off the land. And in winter, when it's dark and cold, there's not much to do in the field. So that's another reason why sort of all the activities started to be centered indoors and are really focused on bringing together the family and the community. So that's the double meaning of Advent. So it's time to gather and it's time to prepare for the birth of Christ, for the end of the year and for the beginning of a new cycle, both inside and out. So people prepared, they fasted, they went through their spiritual preparation as well as preparing their house, fixing their equipment, etc., because they now had time because they weren't working outside. A little disclaimer at this point before we move any further: in order to fully understand these customs and to appreciate the depth and the richness and the age of them, we need to say that they're of course built on the Christian tradition. But before Christianity came to Slovakia in the 9th century, there had been a culture existent in the area, and there had been people living here who practiced a different faith. They worshipped nature. And when Christianity came, this culture could not just be wiped overnight. And so many of these traditions and ceremonies and rituals merged with the new Christian faith to create something truly unique, and that is Slovak Christian Advent. we will very clearly see how these two components are woven together in how we celebrate the season in Slovakia. So it's worth keeping an open mind and being curious, because this takes us to past that's ancient, but it also reveals a lot about lives, beliefs, and philosophies of our predecessors. So the Advent season is marked by certain special days. It starts at the end of November and it runs through the entire Advent and into Christmas and then continues in New Year. We already celebrated a few of them, but today we'll start with St. Nicolas Day, which is tomorrow. Again, on the Christian level, the Christian tradition, on this day, we remember the story and the persona of St. Nicholas, who was bishop and who became known as a symbol of generosity because he supported the ones in need at the time that he lived. He was from privileged background, but he gave to those that needed it most. And so he became kind of a symbol of this generosity. And that's why on this day in Slovakia, we give little gifts to children, usually sweets and little treats. And that has been done for a long time in honor of St. Nicholas. What we commonly see in Slovakia until today are those processions of St. Nicholas accompanied by an angel and a devil. This has a disciplining element because it's supposed to encourage children to behave themselves, because when they do, they will be rewarded by St. Nicholas, and if they misbehave, they will be disciplined by the devil. So it can be quite scary for children at times, as this procession visits schools, kindergartens. It's part of community celebrations that normally take place in streets and in squares. Not this year, sadly, but hopefully we'll return to that soon. But this procession is an abridged version of what used to take place in Slovakia in the Middle Ages. It's a little known fact that St. Nicholas is also a patron saint of students. So on this day, it was the students who gathered, who elected their leader, who dressed up as St. Nicholas, and who went through the village, all through the town, supposedly sort of delivering blessings and prayers and getting a little something in return from people. But oftentimes these processions turned rogue and rough, and students started to demand the gifts rather than to just receive them. There was drinking going on and alcohol, and so church really frowned upon this custom until it was eventually banned in the 18th century. So these big processions then shrunk to the three member little ensemble of St. Nicholas, the angel, and the devil. But we can submerge even deeper into history when it comes to this custom, because especially that figure of devil is interesting. And it's a remnant of that much older pre-Christian culture, because those people too used to have their own customs at this time of year that consisted of ceremonies and processions. They were not led by St. Nicholas, and they were not Christian in nature because this was much older. So instead, these were organized in honor of a deity, of god Veles, who was the god of the underworld. So he was in charge of sort of guiding the departed souls from this world into the next. But he was also believed to be the patron of forests, of animals. It's said in Slavic lore that it was this god who taught humans how to farm the land or how to domesticate the animals. And so people at this time of year dressed up in sheepskins, in furs, because that was the connection to the god who was the patron of these animals and the protector of them. And when you look closely at the figure of the devil, it very much kind of resembles that. So this is one of the remnants of the much older legacy of celebrations that take place today. And we can see how these pre-Christian and Christian traditions merged to create this unique and wonderful custom that we all love. St. Nicholas Day is also, or used to be, very important to merchants because it's all connected to generosity and prosperity and so on and so forth. So in the past, traders and merchants would really try to close the big deals on this day because they believed this would bring them prosperity and that this would be good for their business. So that's another facet of this rich holiday, of which only that one aspect of giving little gifts to children remains until today. Moving on to December 13th, so in a week's time about, we will celebrate Santa Lucia's Day. This is also connected to a Christian saint. Santa Lucia was one of the early martyrs. She was a young woman who refused to give up her faith, and so she was punished for converting to Christianity and eventually lost her life for it. She's also the patron of light, hence the name Lucia, which in Latin means light. But in Slovakia, we have this curious tradition that is difficult to understand when we just approach it through the lens of Christianity. Because on this day, it still happens today. It's not as common as it was, say, before the Second World War, but this custom is still alive. Seeing processions again, but this time of girls dressed in white, with their faces whitened with flour, carrying a goose feather. They go from house to house, they silently enter, and they sweep the house with the goose feather, and then they leave again in complete silence. They are called Ludzki or Lucias, so they're kind of an embodiment of Saint Lucia, who was just a girl, a very young woman at the time that she died. So they symbolize the innocence and the purity of the saint that we celebrate on this day. But again, this custom has its roots in the pre-Christian history, because those people believe that winter in general it's physically there is more darkness around us. Days are shorter and nights are getting longer and longer. In the past, it was also a challenging time of year because winter came in with illnesses, death, hardships. And so in the folk imagination, this darkness with the challenges of the season became linked into this concept that at this time of year in winter, there are certain dark or negative forces around that bring around those illnesses, death, and misfortune. So they try to protect themselves from it. And that was the role of the Ludzki, the processions of Lucias, with the sweeping of the houses. That was not just ceremonial, it had a very important symbolic function in the past because they were removing all these, you can call them witches or ghosts or spirits or negative energy, whatever you want. So all this heaviness, that misfortune, away from people's houses to protect them. And as I said, this is still practiced today, and it used to be much loved tradition during the era of communism because children were not given any pocket money normally. So this was an opportunity for girls to earn some, so they loved going around and sweeping houses away because they would always be given a little something in return. Santa Lucia's Day also comes with another tradition that involves single girls. because our predecessors believed that this was a very special day, and that they could engage in certain activities to influence their future or to peek into the future. So if you were a single girl on this day and you wanted a husband and you wanted to know who that would be, you would prepare 12 little pieces of paper, and on each piece of paper you would write the name of a boy that you might be interested in, or name of a man. And each day, between Santa Lucia's Day until Christmas Eve, you would pull one paper out of that basket where you would keep those little pieces of paper. You wouldn't look at it, you would just burn it. And the last piece of paper with the last name said that that would be your husband in the year to come. So this is another kind of custom that is older than the arrival of Christianity, when really people believed that this was a magical time of year. And you can do it yourself, you know, perhaps you're not looking for a husband, but you may wish for something. So you may want to place the 12 wishes on 12 papers and, you know, remove one each day and see which one comes true for you on Christmas Eve and in the year to come. So it's a fun way of keeping the tradition going and engaging with our ancestors and with our roots. Moving on to a much less known holiday, St. Thomas Day on December 21st. So before Christianity was established in Slovakia and in Central Europe, people still celebrated, but they did not celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. They celebrated winter solstice on the 21st of December. And when Christianity came, it built on this legacy, and eventually that became St. Thomas Day. Again, this was a very special day because from this point onwards, days are beginning to grow longer again, and the nights are getting shorter. So that was really exciting for our ancestors, because that was a little bit of hope in this difficult season. You know, they were past the worst, and now days are getting longer. There is more life, and life is getting better. So it was an opportunity to celebrate. And it still happens in rural areas in Slovakia, mostly, that processions, again, of boys this time visit houses, carrying a little bit of metal as a symbol of sort of solid health and prosperity. And they bring in prayers and wishes of good health and good luck and togetherness to every family. Aside from that, up until recently, the traditional pig slaughter or pig killing that took place in everybody's house would happen, or a lot of that would happen on December 21st, because it was believed that a pig killed on this day, the meat of that pig would stay fresh for longer, and that the pork fat from this pig had healing properties. So this was also, of course, accompanied by sharing food, by gathering, by celebrating, and by being merry as much as you could, unless you practice the Advent fasting, in which case you would refrain from actually eating the meat, and that would only happen on later on during the actual Holy Trinity of Christmas Day, so 24th, 25th, 26th of December. And then comes the big day, you know, the grand finale of the season, and it's 24th of December and the Christmas Eve, which is the apex of the holiday season in Slovakia, and that's accompanied by a great host of customs, traditions, and practices that are all focused on sort of inviting in prosperity into the family, togetherness, good health, love, and so on and so forth. On this day, people are very mindful of what they were thinking or what they were saying, because it was said that, you know, your thoughts and your words will stay with you for the year to come. So everybody would be well advised to only wish everybody well in order to have just goodness flow into their life. If you had any disagreements with anyone, they should be settled before you sit down to have your Christmas dinner on Christmas Eve, because this is, after all, a season of peace and gratitude. So you shouldn't be arguing with anyone as you sit down to have this special meal and celebrate this special holiday. So Christmas Eve traditions started very early, especially for women who would often get up shortly after midnight to get baking and cooking, because there was a custom that everything in the kitchen realm should be finished, done, baked, and cooked before the sunrise. So they would be very busy all night until morning. And in the morning, so they would be joined by the men who were in charge of making sure that the family would have enough firewood for 3 days, during which, during that period of time, nobody in the family was really to engage in any work. They really should fit in with the message of Christmas and be with the family. So people had to make sure that they would have everything that they needed at home. Also, people would go and wash their faces in fresh running water, so in the spring or in the well. Girls believed that it would make them beautiful, but this water was also given to the elderly and to those who were ill, so as to assist their healing, so as to remedy anything that might be wrong with them. And on this day, it's still part of the Advent fasting. You're not supposed to eat meat, and you're not supposed to overeat or overindulge in anything. So you shouldn't be eating on this day at all. You should wait actually until Christmas dinner, or until the bells from the local church bell tower sound. That was the signal to the community to begin their Christmas Eve festivities. But even before that, so you would gather everything you would need. Women and girls would make sure to prepare the space. So the house was to be cleaned. Much attention went into preparing the Christmas table that was to be wrapped clean, covered in clean white linen cloth, embroidered with red thread, because that was believed to have magical properties and to protect you from everything that you don't want in your life. Often a chain would be placed around the legs of the table, and during the dinner, all the family members would put their legs on it. And this was to guarantee that the family will stay together in the year to come, that it will not break. It will help to forge the family togetherness. Aside from the table, so you have all the food being ready, but before the family sits down to have their meal, they were to give thanks to the ancestors, to the predecessors, and to offer a little bit of food to them, usually by placing dried peas or poppy seeds or any kind of pulses in the corners of the room or in the loft. And special care was to be given to all the farm animals, because they were having their special time too, and they were an important part of the family and the survival. So everything that you would serve on the Christmas Eve dinner table, a little bit of that should be given also to the farm animals, to give thanks to them too, and to acknowledge their role in the family and the importance of them. So once everything was done, and the family sat down to have I got muted. So nobody was supposed to leave the dinner table until the meal was over, except for the lady of the house, who was allowed to serve everybody else. The dinner would start with a prayer. There would be the Bible on the table, and the Christmas tree would not be sort of in the corner standing as we are used to it, but it would be hanging over the table, creating that special ceremonious space. The dinner itself is fascinating on this day. It's full of symbolism and full of meaning. The Christmas Eve dinner was to sort of embody or contain everything that the family harvested that year. In whatever modest amount, you are supposed to include everything that nature gave you that growing season and have it present on the dinner table in order to assure that the harvest next year will be as good or even better than the one that you just had. Dinner had 7, 9, or 12 courses. Now, don't imagine a huge feast. Those meals would be very humble and they would be symbolic. So it was supposed to be abundant, but not sort of indulgent. Many of you will know the custom of having oplatky or very thin wafers that are kind of at-home version of the body of Christ given during the Holy Mass. So that would be served together with honey being a symbol of love, sweetness of life, and good health. That would be one course. Then you would have fruit. Until today, we have the tradition of cutting an apple in the half. If you see a beautiful star of seeds inside, that would mean that you will be healthy and happy in the year to come. If it doesn't work out for you, that might mean some trouble or illness waiting at some point during the next 12 months. So that was one course. There would be nuts and dried foods. There would be a soup. The soup would vary according to the region. In Eastern Slovakia, the sauerkraut kapustnica would be popular. In the West, it was fish soup. In Central Slovakia, people preferred to have a soup made of pulses, so beans or lentils. Then there would be porridge, which was a very important ceremonial meal for the predecessors of Slovaks, so the Slavs, and that would be present during all their celebrations and rituals, and that had to be on the table in one way or another, so it could be sweet or savory, and it would be usually made from, again, it would be beans, chickpeas, lentils, some kind of pulses, because pulses, they're tiny and there are many of them, so they symbolize prosperity and abundance. And of course, you want to have that on the dinner table because you want to have that in your life next year. And then there would be cakes of various descriptions or special kinds of breads that would again vary depending on the region, but that would normally contain poppy seeds. Because poppy seeds, just as lentils and etc., are tiny, there are many of them, and they symbolize prosperity again. So all this, what unfolded, and it still does in Slovak households today, was to give thanks. So it was our kind of Christmas Thanksgiving for the year just gone, but it was also to influence your life in the year to come. And when the Christmas Eve dinner was over, that was for Catholics meatless. For Protestants, that could involve meat as well. When the dinner was over, you were not to throw away any of the food, not even breadcrumbs. That would either be given to the farm animals, and the breadcrumbs would be kept, and they would be used to put into the soil with the first seeds in spring to make sure the harvest would be good, or they would be used in healing. And after dinner, the entire family prepared and walked to the church to attend the midnight mass, and that kind of marked the apex of the day and sort of the season. And after that follow more celebrations, and the family starts to open up to visitors and friends coming over, because Christmas itself, Christmas Eve, and the 25th of December, so the first holiday of Christmas, are supposed to be spent in the tight family circle. So that's when you're not supposed to be visiting. But on the 26th, that's when the party and everything begins, and life returns in full force to Slovakia, and there is a lot of joy and merriment. So I believe our time is up. Thank you so much for joining us for this brief run through the many traditions that we have in Slovakia. So it was kind of giving you a flavor of what it is like. There was much more, and there is even more symbolism and more layers, but we try to cover as much ground to give you a big picture of the holiday and its meaning.
So thank you so much, Dr. Gabriela, for this wonderful presentation. As always, you've shared so much knowledge and detail. It's almost difficult to take in, so I'm sure the recording will be very useful for those that want to listen to this presentation again and take it in one more time. We wanted to use this opportunity to inform you about our new course, which is called Slovak Christmas. But we were informed by one of the viewers here today that actually the website is down, so it's under maintenance. So unfortunately, we cannot provide you the link, but I will just briefly introduce it. This is what we refer to as your absolute ultimate guide to Slovak Christmas. It covers some of the information that we shared here with you today, as well as going into much greater detail. We have recordings, lecture recordings for you. We have different pamphlets and PDFs that you can go through. We have many recipes. We have Slovak Christmas carols and lots of audio visuals to help you recreate a Slovak Christmas in your home. And if many of you already practice these customs, it's an opportunity for you to better understand the depth and meaning behind them. We do have a special that's buy one, give one. So in honor of the festive season and in honor of gift giving, we're allowing you to purchase it for yourself, but also have the opportunity to share it with a friend or a loved one, or as I was speaking with one of our viewers here today, a friend that is looking to reconnect more with Slovak culture, or a friend that was simply not able to attend today, but you see value in sharing more of Slovak Christmas heritage with them. So unfortunately, we don't have the link, but hopefully Helen will be able to share it with your community. And I want to use this opportunity to also talk about a new project that we have that I said really will resonate with most of you. That link is working. I'm going to send it here in the chat if you want to visit the website, just to follow along with me as I just do a very, very brief introduction before we go further along with the Christmas theme. And this is called Slovak Settlers to the New World. It's a very, very important heritage project and book, not only because it documents the stories of so many of your ancestors that crossed the Atlantic Ocean to start a new life in a new continent and have continued Slovak heritage, tradition, sometimes even language and cultural practices in the New World. It is also incredibly important for Slovaks in Slovakia. So because of the totalitarian regime, the 41 years of communism, there was a very aggressive anti-immigrant policy in this country, as well as due to the conflict of the Cold War, there was also a lot of pressure on Slovak communities in the US to sever ties with Soviet bloc countries. In this case, Slovakia was part of that. So unfortunately, during the later half of the 20th century, a lot of these ties, which were once very strong, which included the flow of money and culture back and forth, were severed. And now 30 years later, we're looking to rebuild that. And there's been an entire movement, which some of you have been a part of, with the One Slovak Family movement and the revival in the interest in Slovak language and Slovak culture, but also in the interest of Slovak citizenship for Slovak descendants. A Citizenship Act reform amendment that is actually taking place is still ongoing, so we can't update you on that. But if you would like to participate in this project, please look at this website and see if you would like to share the stories of your ancestors' journey to the New World. So this is very important because in Slovakia, these stories are not known. And this book will be a bilingual production that will help to bridge this gap. So it will help to bring forward this heritage that has been in a way lost. And it is actually very, very significant. It's not something that's meant to be ignored. About 1/3 of Slovaks actually emigrated mostly to the United States. So this is a very important story that needs to be told, and this bridge and this bond that has been severed must be restored for the greater good of Slovaks in America, but also Slovaks in Slovakia. So that's enough for me taking your time. Once again, thank you so much. It's a pleasure for Global Slovakia to connect with new communities, and may you have a blessed Advent season ahead of you.
Thank you, Zana and Gabriela. That was a very interesting presentation and just right for the upcoming season. And now we have a very special guest. We have the Slovak ambassador, Ambassador Javorčík, who will read some Slovak poems.
Thank you very much. I was really, I didn't know what to expect from this celebration, but I'm getting more and more excited by the depth of knowledge and the traditions which are shared among the Slovaks living here in the United States and Americans and Slovak Americans coming back to Slovakia. And I have to just say all kudos to Gabriela Berghaziova, because the presentation was wonderful. I was internally inside, I was jumping, and I was, I can have some additions to this part, and Santa Lucia is also in Sweden. And you know, the way my family is living our life in the last 30 years, which is basically traveling around the world, working for the Slovak Republic, being a professional diplomat. Everywhere you find something which connects you back to Slovakia, but always during the Christmas time, you come back, with your family, and you recall what were the traditions you shared and we shared with our grandparents and our parents, and which we want to pass on to next generation. And I really appreciated the last slide with the Christmas menu. And I was immediately going out. Yes, I have many things to add, because there is this tradition, that tradition. But it was lovely, and I'm anxious to wait for our Christmas table to be set and opened, and only me will be able to leave the table because I am the chef for the Christmas dinner. Okay, so I was asked to read a poem or something which connects me to Slovakia, and I chose together with my very new and brave colleague Stanka Buchtova at the embassy, a poem from somebody who writes perfect poems for kids, but they are also good for adults. Daniel Javier is somebody our kids were reading when they were at school, when they were learning Slovak, and they are funny. They have some old language, some new language, and the poem which I will going to read has two parts. The first will be about in Slovak, and that's more towards the kids, explaining what are the differences of Christmas, of the past and the present. But at the end, it's about the same, about giving light and joy to our families. And the second I will read in English, and it will be more about the spiritual part of the celebration of light and life during the Christmas. So I will take off my glasses and try to read both parts of the poem, which is called in English The Christmas Post. Vianočná pošta. Konečne teda štedrý deň, aj keď je vlastne večer. Ťukajú vločky do okien a čas sa vlečie všetkým. Deti si delia balíky a miznú pod papierom. Škoda, že nie som maličký. Dostal som iba pero. Veď tatom viacej netreba. Ponožky, dáka drobnosť, vzdychnú si svorne, ale ba, to sa muselo stáť obnos. Tatom sa ujde nakoniec, poslední prídu na rad, to nie je veru ľahká vec, ešte sa o nich starať. Tak pero, detiská, čo mám s ním ale robiť? Pero je krásna vecička, nie však do tejto doby. Dnes sa už volá mobilom a mailujú sa správy, čo by tu pero robilo. Ja už viem, čo s ním spravím. A tak, decká, ahojte. Píše vám starý známy. Ničoho sa len nebojte, lebo stále občas som s vami. Poviete si, čo dospelák, čo to tu na nás splieta? Neveríte mi? Ja som však začal tiež ako dieťa. Aj škola bola pravda, že dobre, že je už potom. Dnes mi už nikto nekáže, čo robiť so životom. Najkrajšie boli prázdniny a vôbec všetky sviatky. Dlho som smútil za nimi, čas prázdnin je tak krátky. Žiačik sa cez rok premoce a nemôže sa dočkať, kedy už prídu Vianoce. Tie sú pre detské očká. Vianoce, ten čas darčekov, čo chce mať každé deťko. Dnes, keď to je už ďaleko, priznám sa, chcel som všetko. Všetko je veľmi veľká vec, zmestí sa do ňoho veľa, rytier, čo nosí ostrý meč, dielo, čo samo strieľa, raketa s 2 ufónmi, skladačka z malých plastov, chodiaci psík, čo s dúcholmi a stolná lampa na stôl. Potom som zrazu vyrástol, no skôr len odospelel a zabudol na pirátstvo a iné veci skvelé. No dodnes radosť z darov mám, napríklad z tohto pera. Radšej sa však už netešievam, keď jasá syn či dcéra. Veci sú iba predmety, veci sú iba veci. No darčeky sú pre deti, túžime po nich všetci. Dnešok sa volá štedrý deň, aj keď je večer vlastne. Zajtra vám zase napíšem. A tým to zatiaľ hasne. Now in English. The night was deep and blue and dark, with stars all scattered, gleaming. The sky was showing signs that dawn would shortly be appearing. A little donkey, lean and grey, along the road was pacing, and 2 were walking next to him. Who knows where they were facing? The dark was soaking up the moon, the man and woman walking, Joseph and Mary, man and wife. Oh God, she whispered, halting. So now it starts, the to me blows, the new and strange sensation, God's testing out their character, here in this foreign nation. You children know all sorts of things, much more than kids before you. You could explain how kids are born to parents. Yes, I know you do. The husband Joseph drove the donkey. The dark was overwhelming, and Mary, due to have her child, no nurses there for helping. Her husband sought a shelter spot. He saw a tiny gable. For us, it might be quite a shock. It was a little stable. That place was known as Bethlehem, in the world's farthest corner. Between the bare uncovered walls, a little child was born there. He cried like a baby cries. To such his lungs completely, his mother took him in her arms and comforted him sweetly. Now, be still, though your bed's rough, until your hardship eases. And Jesus was the name she gave, and Joseph whispered, Jesus. Then voices cried across the sky and told all to adore him. Joseph jumped up immediately. An angel stood before him. This is God's child, the angel said. His voice rang to the heaven. He is indeed the King of Kings, and his world's Lord forever. What king? A little stable king. Some think it's foolish dreaming. But see the pupil of his eyes, the startling in them gleaming. But isn't he a tiny thing? Some say it was all a fable. So here's the ruler born to us, the mighty king of the stable. But looking close at him, they knew, their scornful lips untwisted, this was a king, the king of love, who must not be resisted. This king does not keep guns or bombs, nor soldiers, nor armed sailors. He calls on everyone to change, not hate, but love our neighbors. Children can understand all this. The adults are much slower. For you, this time of joy has come, so that the world may flower. Our Christmas room is packed with gifts. There is one which is most wanted. God shared the man with gift called love. So this is the poem which brings me back to many places in Slovakia, in my house, in our house, to place which I witnessed and was there for many times, the Bethlehem, the place of birth, the Jerusalem when Jesus was crucified, and all the miracles happened in Holy Land. But all these things are just bringing us back to the meaning of light, of family, of love among ourselves. So with this thought, may I leave you and enjoy the Saint Nicolas, who is a guardian of kids and teaching the kids, and start celebrating all the days towards Christmas when we all sit down around our, for some the sauerkraut soup, for somebody like me the fish soup, for some the fish, for some the turkey, but to celebrate togetherness and remember that there is somebody on the other side of the ocean, in Europe or here in the US, and that we are together. I hope that next year we'll be reading the poems like these at the embassy, and that we will just chase away the tiny bug which is holding us back for more than a year. And I hope to see you there with the kids and with your families, so we can enjoy ourselves in Christmas here in DC. God bless you, and have a blessed Christmas.
Thank you, Ambassador. That was a lovely poem.